This is Lab Medicine Rounds, a curated podcast for physicians, laboratory professionals, and students. I'm your host, Justin Kreuter, the bow-tied bandit of blood, a transfusion medicine pathologist here at Mayo Clinic. Today, we're rounding with Dr. Diva Salomao, a professor of laboratory medicine and pathology at Mayo Clinic. She's also a diversity and inclusion leader for the Department of Laboratory Medicine and Pathology. Thank you for joining us today, Dr. Salomao.
Thanks, Dr. Kreuter, for having me.
I'm really excited to kind of dive in to this topic today, but maybe it's best if we kind of start off with the why and kind of, could you set for us, why is it important for laboratory medicine and pathology to be deliberate about diversity and inclusion?
Well, it's a passion of mine, so let's summarize here. Diversity is important in any setting because diversity brings creativity. It fosters innovation, and in the laboratory setting, especially, this is very important. It fits very well with our business plan, right? We want to move ahead. But diversity without inclusion basically doesn't work, because you can have as much diversity as you want, but if the people around the table, a group of people, always dominate the conversation or some never participate, then you're not leveraging the advantage of the diversity. And in order to be successful, diversity and inclusion efforts need to be intentional and relentless, always there. We need to be, always thinking, be on the forefront of everything we do. So are we being inclusive? Do we have everybody, all the players? Are we hearing everybody? So do our efforts really bring diversity and inclusion to the are we being systematic reviewing our process? For example, on interviews, do we have a diverse committee that is interviewing the candidates? Did we wait to have a very diverse pool of candidates? Do we have objective criteria for evaluating the candidates, so we don't have to use, which is often used, do they fit the model, which is very subjective and invites to homogeneity and non-diverse groups. So that's why you need to be deliberate. I don't know if that answered your question.
That's perfect. And I love the idea. I love that you use the example of recruitment, because that's very timely right now. It's the beginning of August. We're going to be entering our recruitment season for new residents and fellowships, and so I wonder, this concept of fit. Like you say, it's been so attractive for many years, where somebody's, does this person fit with our program? And perhaps maybe trainees, when they're interviewing places, are thinking, do I fit in this place? How do you recommend that we transform that question into something that is going to invite diversity and inclusion? How can we transform that question from do they fit to a different question?
As I said, having very objective criteria makes the process more fair and equal. Okay. Inviting diversity, you really need to value diversity. So what diversity brings to the table. And when I say diversity, I'm not saying just diversity of race and ethnicity. I'm saying, life experiences, where you got your education. Because, if we're always using people that we trained or were our students, we all think alike, right? So we don't have different solutions to problems, let's put that way. So diverse groups are, they they often outperform homogeneous groups in finding creative solutions and innovative solutions. So the fit model, it's a tough one because I think for a very long time we use that. And it's only human to feel comfortable with people that think like you and look like you and have the same likes as you. And so I think, like I said, going back, objective criteria. So what do you need to perform this task? What are the qualities or the what are the abilities that you're looking, the skills you're looking for that certain job description? So
Really like that. So I mean, that really does transform the question for me into something, I guess, maybe that I need to think about and we all need to think about ahead of time. It's not, because I think that fit question is often after somebody has interviewed, but if we're deliberate up front about, these are the things that we are looking for, and then during the interview you're sort of assessing based on those different criteria up front. So is what I'm hearing you right, that it's not so much transforming the question, but it's really uh, putting it up ahead of the interview and thinking about what you're trying to recruit
what
for.
are these skills?
Yeah.
Focus on skills and take the personal appearances and age and things out of the equation. So
For somebody like me, where I'm participating in a lot of the initiatives that are going on now at our institution, and becoming more aware of systemic racism, but I'm not really aware of what information have we recently learned about diversity and inclusion in the workplace. What's some of the newer findings that people are discussing?
right now, in the forefront, we're discussing a lot of the disparities. I mean, 2020 has been really a unique year for all of us. And I want to preface saying that we bring our whole selves to work every day. So we bring our worries, we bring our success, our happinesses, things that happen at home and not. So the current events have touched us all in many different ways. And COVID pandemics totally disrupted the way we knew as the regular rhythm of our routine lives, right? So we had to adjust. So you and I are not in the same room having this interview. We would otherwise. School kids are not going to school, so parents with small children are having to juggle many many balls. Some of our employees, um, spouses have lost jobs. Um, so what COVID pandemics has brought to the forefront was to expose that there were a lot of disparities, disparities on healthcare, as well as disparities on economic stress, access to remote education, all of it. And our employees, our students, everybody got touched on that way. On top of it, we had the unfortunately events of the police brutality. We were a captive audience, and they, were brought by social media, and that has we had a cry or a call for social justice, and it has really propelled to the front and center, the need to address systemic racism, as you said, and discrimination of all sorts. And I am really happy that Mayo Clinic took the initiative and has taken a very strong stand to fight against discrimination, inequities, racism, and DLMP as well. So we have started, a series of town halls. A couple of weeks ago was one on systemic racism. This Thursday we have a part two, if you will, which is on white privilege. And we're going to have a third one on social responsibility and community engagement, because I think we're so privileged as an institution and where we work that, we have a responsibility to collaborate and support the ones that are struggling and need help and need our support. So, and that will be followed by some small group discussions. And I think it will be really important for people to participate and, bring their ideas, hear other people's experiences, and learn from each other. So those forums are really for us to learn from each other. So I'm very enthusiastic about it. Of course, we
Yeah,
got a big plan, but that's the short-term plan.
really excited by the plan also. Not only because, as you've described for us, a number of the different strategies that you're using, but that it's really a sustained effort. This isn't kind of a one and done, um, sort of phenomenon. And I was curious if we could just unpack that a little bit more, if we could just kind of dive in a little bit deeper. Maybe we're a little bit specific now for our laboratory medicine colleagues that are listening, but I was wondering if you could unpack, and how is it easier and or harder to move the needle on diversity and inclusion in the laboratory?
Yeah, we are a very large department. We're 4,000 employees, and we have, numerous laboratories, and we have the laboratorians, we have the students, we have a little bit of patient care interface, and then we have the suppliers and everybody else that we work with. What's hard on for the department to move the needle is that we're so fragmented. So every effort is a huge effort. So some departments were able to mobilize quickly, 200 people for a discussion. For us is like a 4,000, so we have to break in smaller groups. So it's hard to get a pulse sometimes of what's going on in each work unit, if you will. And but like I said, we have been working on creating a environment or a program, if you will. Our plan involves working with everyone. So from leadership to supervisors, managers, leads on the work unit, really bring diversity and inclusion, the language, the value to everyone. So the effort is ours, the responsibility is ours to move the mission forward. Let's put that way. So what will, that's the hardest part. And as I said, at this time, I wish we didn't have COVID-19 so we could meet on conference rooms and really have honest discussions. Those are very difficult conversations that are going on right now about discrimination and systemic racism. And I think it would be better if we were face to face. We're having to use Zoom, and not everybody is comfortable speaking up or speaking out. And so that is one thing that has made it a little harder for us. So,
It's kind of interesting to think about how COVID is impacting these efforts. Uh, maybe to think hopefully beyond COVID. You're a leader here for diversity inclusion, and I was wondering kind of the vision. Where do you think in 5 years, where will laboratory and pathology, laboratory medicine and pathology, where will we be 5 years from now with respect to diversity and inclusion?
Well, thanks for asking that question, because we've been talking about the short-term plan, which is having the town halls and having the small group discussions and listening sections. But we do have a big plan. And the overarching goals, I'd say, is to increase diversity at all levels of the department. And I'll say including on leadership circle. So having representation of minorities and people of color in our leadership circle as well. And the second goal is to improve the culture of inclusion. So we want to have a workplace where people have a sense that they belong. So it's beyond feeling included. It's really feeling like you belong. So you participate, you're valued by your uniqueness, and your voice is heard. And the third goal, it's really to go beyond. So leadership and DLMP has committed to collaborate and be supportive of our community, our Black communities and minority communities around us, with sponsorships, some mentorships, standing to do business with smaller Black-owned business suppliers. So I think that is a very ambitious, but I think it's great, and I am glad that the leadership is committed. So in 5 years, I hope we have a more diverse, a more inclusive work culture and workplace, and that we are really collaborating with our minority communities and Black communities. So we're making a difference.
Absolutely. I think that kind of connects with a common theme that we have running throughout these podcasts of, connecting laboratory medicine and the clinical practice through conversations. And I see diversity in that, people from different backgrounds coming together, and then this whole idea of conversations. It's an active thing, is this inclusion piece. And I really like that's threaded in there as well. Thank you so much. We've been rounding with Dr. Diva Salomao on the importance of diversity and inclusion with laboratory medicine and pathology. Thank you for taking the time to discuss this topic with us, Dr. Salomao.
Thanks for having me.
If you have enjoyed Lab Medicine Rounds podcast, please subscribe. We invite you to share your thoughts and suggestions via email. Please direct any suggestions to mcleducation@mayo.edu and reference this podcast. Until our next rounds together, we encourage you to continue to connect lab medicine and the clinical practice through insightful conversations.